Hello and welcome back to Movie Flakes. We have been debating if Daemon is the Night King from Game of Thrones for a very long time. Here are the answers to all of your inquiries. Guys, please remember to hit the like button, leave comments, and subscribe for more videos. Keep in mind that House of the Dragon has 4 seasons with 10 episodes each to wrap up the plot, so that we don't take up too much of your time. Let's resume our talk. This would be a shocking storyline turn. House of the Dragon has already changed and added unknowable information to the Game of Thrones canon in its early episodes, changing the Night King's narrative among other things. Despite being set roughly 300 years before the events of Game of Thrones, House of the Dragon has been doing an excellent job as a prequel, setting the groundwork and having a significant impact on some of the events and history of the original series. There are several significant unanswered questions regarding the Night King, including who he really is and why he was so driven to assassinate Bran Stark. Fans of House of the Dragons have already proposed a ridiculous notion 2 episodes in. What if the Night King, the main antagonist of Game of Thrones, is actually Daemon Targaryen, despite the fact that it can appear a little strained? In fact, such a possibility exists. In addition, according to Fire and Blood, Daemon's body was never found after his death struggle with Aemond and Vhagar. We also don't know the identity of the man who was transformed into the Night King. It is not the only item suggesting that Daemon might be the Night King. The Night King's attire is comparable to that of Daemon. The shoulders and the collar, the textures are comparable. Additionally, the Night King rode the dragon with confidence. I concur, and my first reaction was that Daemon is the Night King. After all, the two definitely resemble one another. They both have blonde hair and a similar demeanor, which further reinforces fans' convictions. Matt Smith, who plays Daemon in the prequel series, was not the guy who was transformed into the Night King in the Game of Thrones episode. Fans counter that since we never learn the man's name, the prequel is free to alter that. In Game of Thrones, the Night King himself was portrayed by 2 separate actors, not just one. The Night King was first portrayed by British-American actor Richard Brake in seasons 4 and 5, and then by Slovakian actor and stuntman Vladimir Furtik in seasons 6 through 8. Others maintain that the Night King, who was created thousands of years before the events of Game of Thrones and, naturally, far before the events of House of the Dragon, was the first White Walker. Even while the showrunners have undoubtedly avoided commenting on the notion that Daemon Targaryen is the Night King, House of the Dragon might choose for such a retcon. However, it is important to note that George R.R. Martin is actively involved in the development of House of the Dragon, so any potential retcon would truly fall on the shoulders of the author of A Song of Ice and Fire himself. 8 more episodes will either confirm or refute that. New episodes of House of the Dragon are presently available to view on HBO Max. As previously established, Daemon Targaryen is said to have perished during the battle above the God's Eye when he executed a daring leap off of Caraxes to stab Aemon Targaryen in the eye. Only the bodies of the 2 dragons and Aemond were discovered, leaving Daemon, Caraxes, Aemond, and Vhagar to fall into the enormous lake known as the God's Eye. Daemon's corpse was never discovered. Daemon does resemble a real villain that was presented in Game of Thrones, given that he exhibits anti-hero traits and is not the kindest person in the 7 kingdoms. Of course, the White Walkers are led by the Night King, who also serves as the Army of the Dead's top commander. Since his murder at the hands of Arya Stark resulted in the destruction of his whole army, he is the very source of life for all White Walkers and the Walking Dead. Even though the Night King was silent for the majority of the time, it was obvious that he wanted to eradicate humans from the world. Daemon's body was never discovered at the conclusion of his story in the novel, and considering that he would desire his own crown, some people might think that he is the Night King. He is not the Night King, which was something he never got a chance to wear. The fact that Daemon was born more than 200 years before the events of Game of Thrones serves as the proof. His alleged demise occurred in 130 AC. Or roughly 170 years before the events of Game of Thrones. The Night King has been present for longer than that, as anyone who had their ears open during the events of Game of Thrones would know. The 3-eyed raven becomes even more significant if Bran's predecessor was a Targaryen parody. Due to his extraordinary green vision and relationship with the children of the forest, his power and significance were immediately obvious. The character's involvement in the narrative is further enhanced by this deeper layer. It gives him a clearer purpose and makes him less enigmatic. If the 3-eyed raven was aware of Aegon's prophecy from A Song of Ice and Fire, it would make even more sense to use him as a crucial line of defense against the White Walkers. Doubtfully, if he had been able to influence events in his favor, what he did might have helped Bran become the 3-eyed raven as well as a Targaryen commanding Westeros in the battle against the dead. In turn, that contributes to elaborating on the significance of Aegon's White Walker dream and solidifying its status in Westerosi history. This makes it an even bigger struggle between House Targaryen and the White Walkers, rather than just a prophecy passed down from king to successor that none of them actually had to face. Unfortunately, Game of Thrones left many questions unanswered regarding the Night King, as it would have been fascinating to learn what, if anything, Aegon knew about it and whether or not he was aware that the three-eyed raven, at least at the time of his return, had Targaryen blood coursing through him. The Targaryens are presented in House of the Dragon as the antithesis of winter, the fire that can melt the ice. It is a wonderful addition to the story that the Night King's greatest adversary, at least initially, comes from within that Targaryen family. This gives the story even more weight and significance. In Game of Thrones, it was revealed that the Children of the Forest created the Night King during the time of the First Men in order to defend themselves from mankind. But as he started to build an army that gave him the ability to attack the entire continent, the Night King ultimately grew to be too strong for the Children of the Forest to control. Although Brandon the Builder constructed the wall to defend them from the White Walkers, the combined efforts of the First Men and the Children of the Forest allowed them to force the Night King all the way to the north. Around 10,000 years prior to the events of Game of Thrones, this took place. In that perspective, the Night King existed for tens of thousands of years prior to the birth of Daemon Targaryen. As a result, Daemon, who lived about 200 years before the events of Game of Thrones, could not possibly be the same creature that lived for thousands of years prior to his demise in those events. Therefore, there is no basis for supposing that Daemon and the Night King are the same individual. Please remember to like, comment, and subscribe for more videos when you finish viewing.